Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Decaf from sunny Tennessee. I feel like every time we've recorded, it's been rainy outside or terrible weather, at least for me, not while you were in Florida. But today is a beautiful day in Nashville, Tennessee. It's great to be here with you, Mark. I feel like I haven't seen you at all this week. Where were you this week?
Yeah, I was in Los Angeles for a conference, which it was somehow like 8 degrees cooler there than it was here, it felt good. It was a cool experience. I got to, do some stuff with Atlas. It was a cool place to go. And I met an NBA player, which was cool, at my hotel.
Who?
Mo Bamba. He was on the Magic, and apparently there's a famous rap song about him.
What?
Yeah, like one of the most, apparently it's like a big deal. Somebody just knew him in high school, and there's like a famous rap song. But he was at the hotel. He just got traded to the Lakers, and like I recognized him, like, and then I talked to him for 45 seconds, and he could not have been any nicer. So it was a cool experience all the way around. But I am, LA is a beautiful place, but I am happy to be back.
Yes, it's nice to have you back. It felt like a weird week not talking to you every day. If for those of you who don't know or can't tell, Mark and I are like best friends outside of our professional working relationship. And on days where I don't talk to Mark, it feels really, really weird. It's like going a day without talking to my mom, except for you're way more critical of me.
That is not true, probably. But also, I feel like we talk, probably 30 times a day during the day, too. Just work stuff, just chatting back and forth, personal stuff, too. But, we talk all the time. And I did text you about the Alabama situation not being good, though. That was the one time I talked to you the past couple of weeks.
And, I don't really trash Alabama that often. But, it's not good. It's not really good. Not good. I watched an AL.com reporter on with Paul Feinbaum, and I was like, do I really want to watch this? It's not a good situation for the Alabama basketball team right now. And Mark said that he's no longer rooting for Alabama. So I was like, oh, cool.
No, to be clear, I'm not rooting for Alabama. It's not based on this. It's because I want Texas A&M to win because I can win way more money. So it's not, I don't care. I mean, not that I don't care. This is not relevant to my rooting or not rooting for Alabama. I just want a lot more if A&M wins than if Texas wins, or if Alabama wins.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, while we're on the topic of money, let's dive right into something that's going on in Tennessee right now. I've talked about it a few times, but in our Blueprint for a Freer Tennessee this year, we outlined a few ways that Tennessee can shake off some of the burdensome regulations that we have. And the most burdensome thing that happens to Tennesseans or people in any state is taxes. We all grew up and our dads would say, the only two things in life are inevitable: death and taxes. Well, there's a little known tax in Tennessee that affects a lot of people in a really big way, specifically businesses and even more specifically small businesses. Our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Council over the last year put together a package of recommendations to make Tennessee an easier place to start a business. And one of the things that came up from business owners and accountants in particular was this thing called the gross receipts tax or the business tax. With the business tax, it's a lot of people don't know what it is until you're in a small business situation and you have to file it for yourself and your accountant won't touch it because it's so convoluted and complicated. What happens is every single thing, it's a tax on your top line. So every single item in production of a certain good is taxed. So let's say you're putting together a car and you've got a metal part that goes into another metal part that goes into a car. You're not just being taxed when you sell the car or when someone buys the car. You're being taxed on this tiny metal part, on the bigger metal part that it goes into, everything that you purchase to go into a particular product. I think about it a lot. I try to equate it to something simpler than a car. I always say, let's think if you're a candle manufacturer. The manufacturer who's making the candles is not only taxed on the income that they get when they sell the candle, they're taxed on the wick, on the little metal thing that holds the wick to the bottom of the candle container, on the wax, on the fragrance, on the glass that the candle is in. You're taxed on every single part of that. And then when you sell it, all of those taxes are then passed on to the consumer. It makes it really hard for people who are starting businesses who don't have a background in accounting to actually get their filings correct. And it doesn't make a lot of sense because Tennessee is in such a huge budget surplus year over year over year, huge budget surplus. Why would we have this little, it doesn't contribute that much to the budget. It doesn't make a lot of sense why we have it. And it's something that we were paying a really close attention to with our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Council. that would make Tennesseans' lives a lot easier if we would just take this little teeny tax off the books. We already have a great, very light tax burden here in Tennessee. And for this teeny tiny tax to be something that's derailing small businesses, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, and the way it affects people too, just to kind of clarify this, it basically is taxed at every level. So like when somebody makes something, so they're taxed when they actually create it. When they send it to a wholesaler, for example, the same item is taxed again. So the full, a little bit different than what you're saying, but like the full candle is taxed when it's all made. Then it's taxed again when it goes to the wholesaler. Then it goes to the retailer and it's taxed again. So this candle, which was, created, was taxed 3 times, which because of that is going to make it a lot more expensive when it goes to sale, because guess who pays those taxes? The person buying it. So that goes up because all these businesses have to pay the tax, and then eventually it goes to retail and somebody buys it. And maybe it's too expensive for them to buy. So, because of all these taxes that people are losing money. But the most offensive thing about this tax is that it's basically, I think it's over $10,000 in sales you have to pay the tax. But the biggest issue with that is that it's $10,000 in sales. You could, say you do $50,000 in sales, but you lost $300,000 that year. You still have to pay the tax, even though you lost $250,000. You have to pay the tax on what you sold. So just, I think from a basic fairness thing, even if you're one of those people who's like, oh, tax all businesses, whatever, there's the very far left people, it's still an awful tax because these are people who are losing money in a lot of cases. And like you said, people who are just starting businesses. And on top of like, oh, it's hard to start a business. A lot of times I think there's something that's like, you're not usually successful to the third year where you're turning a profit. So those first 2 years, when you're scraping pennies together to keep your business alive, they're forcing you to pay a tax, even though you're losing money. It really is outlandish. And again, it doesn't really matter where you're at. It's clearly unfair no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, there are so many levels of taxes. I was with Jordan this morning and we were doing a presentation for students at Austin Peay University. And he used the car example, this little piece of metal that goes into you're taxed at every level. And then you're right, it doesn't even count when the car then goes to the dealership and it's taxed again. It's every single thing. And he used another example of, you spend you make $1 million on a new product, but you spent $3 million in research and development on the product. You're still at a net loss, and then you're still paying a tax on it. And for it to not really make as much of a difference in the bottom line of Tennessee's budget, it should go away. We shouldn't have to deal with this. Small business owners shouldn't have to deal with this. It really does hurt those startups. And Tennessee's such a great place to start a business anyway, that we shouldn't deter them anymore. I mean, there are so many people who are leaving the states that have restrictive tax codes and coming here and they're like, wait a second, this tax doesn't make a lot of sense. And so that's one of the things that our Entrepreneurship and Innovation Council proposed this year, something that I wasn't even aware of, which is why we do such large grassroots coalition building activity, because I'm not a subject matter expert in taxes. Neither are you, Mark. I'm a subject matter expert in Alabama football, and you're a subject matter expert in the Utah Jazz. But there are people who know a lot about our tax structure, what's hurting small businesses, because they're living in it. They're having to endure it. They're having to pay it. And they're having accountants turn them away and tell you, we can't do this gross receipts tax for you. You're going to have to figure this out on your own because it's so convoluted and it's so complicated. And if we do something about this, it's going to help so many Tennesseans start new businesses. So be on the lookout for more research that's coming out about that, and check out our website. We have a brand new blog post about the business tax that is out on our website now that explains it in a way better way than Mark ever could from our policy team, or that I ever could even from our policy team, because they are experts on this, and they have identified this as the next tax that needs to go in Tennessee. And hopefully, I know it's unrealistic, but would love to see just tax after tax after tax going away in Tennessee to make it an even freer place to live. I know I have unrealistic hopes and expectations for things like that, but it would be a beautiful thing.
Well, to be clear, the policy team can explain it more in depth, maybe not better. That's always some of the issue. That's why we kind of have jobs, because they can explain every part of it, but sometimes not always great for normal people. They
can't give it the razzle dazzle that we
They cannot give it the razzle dazzle. Also, it's a hilarious story that I didn't realize that that you talked to Austin P today. So one of the best, I got to tell you about this experience. So I went to the Ohio Valley Conference Championship in 2016, and that was in Nashville. And Austin P pulled all these upsets, and they got a tournament bid. And the coolest thing is their fans were so fun, and their chant is "Let's go P." That is their chant, and that literally that's what they all chant it. Like that is their chant when they're doing one. Like that is such a hilariously insane chant. So shout out to Austin P.
Shout out to Austin P. That's creative, and that's really funny.
It is.
When Jacksonville State University was in the Ohio Valley Conference, I talk about JSU football all the time. I used to watch them play all the time, but their students didn't really travel. So I've seen Austin P play football a million times, but I had no idea that was their chant. That's good stuff right there. Look, if you got a funny name, you got to make fun of it.
That's right.
Speaking of making fun of things, let's talk about a making fun of situation that was completely unacceptable this week. Don Lemon, in typical Don Lemon fashion, chose to really put his foot in his mouth when he said that Nikki Haley was past her prime as she's approaching a potential presidential run. Now, I don't like Don Lemon. I do kind of think that CNN might have gone too far. I have a very nuanced view of this. And Mark, I think that you might also. My first take is a man should not be commenting on when a woman is past her prime. Okay? Like, that's out of bounds. You're not allowed to say that. Number two, everyone who has talked about that Joe Biden might be a little bit too old for the presidency, CNN absolutely attacks, comes out guns a-blazing to attack them. Three, I don't know that he should have faced disciplinary action from CNN about saying that. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I'm perfectly fine with calling him out on the internet and being like, my brother in Christ, please stop. But I don't know that he should have faced disciplinary action from his employer for saying that on a show where he is literally paid to state his opinion. Mark, what do you think?
Well, I agree with you, but that kind of changes. I don't agree with your number one point. I think, anybody should be able to comment on anybody even past their prime. That is his job. Now, he's wrong. Why can you comment on Biden being past his prime, but not Nikki Haley?
No, I'm saying that from like a girl perspective. There's like few things that you shouldn't comment about, like from my perspective about women. You shouldn't comment on their weight and if they are past their prime for a job. I think that's out of bounds. I don't like it. I would call him out over that. Now, I'm not his employer, but I would call him out on that.
Well, I mean, it's different. You're talking about past your prime politically. You're not like saying something. And of course, it's an insane comment. He's way wrong. She's 25 years younger than everyone. I mean, it was stupid. It was ridiculous. But that's also his job to talk about things like that. I don't think. See, that is a double standard that I don't really think is fair. If you're going to be, if you're going to be a political commentator, well, I mean, it's dumb. But like, I mean, I've heard people say like Biden's way too old, past his prime. Why is that okay to say? And Nikki Haley, it was wrong. I mean, it's insane because she's in her like early 50s, and I don't even understand what he was talking about. I don't know if he's talking about childbearing years or what, because it didn't even make any sense if you watch it. And Don Lemon's an idiot, and he's the worst. But that is his job to comment on people. I don't think that's a fair assessment to say he shouldn't be able to comment on it. Like, people are talking about Dianne Feinstein being past her prime. She's like 90. She is past her prime. She can barely put a sentence together.
That's true. I just think there are a few things that should be out of bounds to comment on a woman's age and a woman's weight being two of those things. If you can't, but this is exactly what we talked about last week, Mark. If you can't criticize them based on policy positions, then what do you got? I just think it's an ugly. I think it's tacky. I guess that's what it is. I think it's tacky.
It shouldn't be women then. It should be both. It should be both. You should be like, that's the whole thing. Is I don't think that saying women. Of course, you shouldn't be talking about people's weight and politics either. But it's like it can't just be women. It says either this is out of bounds or it's inbounds. I disagree with you that it's. I mean, I think that if somebody is really old, it's something that it can be talked about because if they don't have the mental ability, there's a reason that if you're 90, you shouldn't just be able to keep thriving if you can't see the road. So I do feel like I think it's inbounds. What he said was stupid. It was wrong. It was sexist because he hasn't said it about men. And it's a reap what you sow situation where, like, I mean, all we hear about is, how Don Lemon cares about all these things. And he would criticize anybody else for saying that. If it was about a Democratic woman, I'm sure it'd be different. So he's inconsistent. And again, maybe the worst person on television. But I think that topic's inbounds. He's just clearly wrong about it. And it is sexist for sure from him.
I'm digging my heels in on this because I don't think that age and intellectual capability are the same thing. My grandmother's 88 years old and sharp as a tack. Her age does not discount her intellectual ability. If he commented and said Nikki Haley is not smart enough for this, or she doesn't have the intellectual capability, that's fine. I think that you have to separate age and intellect and intellectual ability there. And I just think it's tacky to comment on a woman's weight, appearance, or her age, when really we should be synthesizing and analyzing their intellectual ability or commenting on their policy positions. And you could say the same for men too. I would say the same for men. I'm just sticking up for my girls here.
For what it's worth, you're wrong. As you get older, you do gradually decline cognitive ability. That's a fact. Like it's anyone can say
sure.
it. So it's not saying that your grandma maybe might still be good. She's not what she was at 60 or at 55.
I agree.
So it's not true. The age does directly impact cognitive ability. I think it's inbounds. Now, when you're in your 50s, it's so hard because it's such an insane thing to say. And now I'm really arguing about what you said earlier, but Don Lemon could not be. I mean, I really want to emphasize how awful Don Lemon is. So I'm in no way defending him.
Sure.
I think that talking about Biden or Trump being too old is a completely inbounds topic. I mean, both parties talk about that. When they want somebody else, it's just, I don't know what Don Lemon was talking about, and I think he was talking about childbearing. It's like, and they said, look at Google.
So
like,
bizarre.
What are you talking about? Look at Google. Like, nobody on Google says
it's so bizarre.
Yeah, it should be one of the younger people to run for president, probably ever. So
yes.
It's an insane thing. Again, I think we live in a free market society. If CNN wants to punish him for that, they can do whatever they want. I think if you punish every stupid comment Don Lemon made, he would have been off the air like 20 years ago. So I don't think that. I mean, I think you have to have a different standard for him because he is such a partisan hack. I mean, that's what he is. But
no, I totally agree. And we're all entitled to our own opinions. That's just my opinion. That's my take on it. But I do think that he is the worst. When you're scrolling TikTok or Instagram Reels and you see, and I see a clip from CNN with his face pop up, it's one of those things where it's kind of like watching something really scary and horrible. And you're like, I kind of want to watch, but I can't look away, but I have to look away. Every time I see his face, I just scroll for my mental health because I know that he's going to say something that's going to make me feel dumber. And, when you listen to those certain people and they just make you feel dumber by osmosis because you're just listening to them be dumb.
But he thinks he's so smart. I mean, he thinks
he's so smart.
He thinks he's the smartest guy in the world. It's like he just misses his, approval or not approval. His ratings keep going down. They moved him to a different time slot. He's just, and the worst part of that is that I don't care about people who are super left or super right, like Rachel Maddow, Sean Hannity, whatever. That's their thing. He's supposed to be a journalist. That's what makes that so much worse. He's supposed to be a nonpartisan journalist, and all he does is and that's why CNN is failing. It's awful, and I bet he is fired by the end of the year, and not because of these comments, because nobody watches him or likes him.
I wonder if you can actually place a bet on that on the internet.
Probably not.
Will Don Lemon still have his job at the end of the year? You might make some money off of that, because I would venture to say that CNN's just going to keep putting him on the air because at least he's making headlines, whether or not what he says is right or wrong. Another show that needs to go off the air by the end of the year, but will be around forever. It's like a cockroach in a nuclear war. You just can't kill them. Is The View. Get this show off the air. It's so bad. This week, they did it again. They did it again. This show, they keep doing it. When we were doing Overcaffeinated over and over, Mark's line was, it's like The View, but not terrible. Well, The View has done it again. How are they still on the air? It was Joy Behar, right, who was effectively objectifying Liam Neeson on the show and saying that she had a huge crush on him, and he was getting so frustrated, saying that I'm here to talk about something else. Can you please stop? And, do I think Liam Neeson's good looking? Absolutely. Would I be talking about it and objectifying him on national news? No. Why? Because imagine if it was 5 dudes sitting around a table doing that to a female actress. People would be up in arms. But The View just continues to get away with bad behavior. And I don't know how long it's going to go on. It's the most insufferable show. Mark, I love your thoughts on The View. Let's hear it.
Well, so 3 people did this. And again, outside of the objectifying or whatever part, they made their guests feel uncomfortable. He was there to talk about two specific things. And instead of that, they talked about how Joy Behar had this huge crush and made all these jokes about, how she would want to be taken by him. It is just, it's a dumpster fire of a show. This is going to come off harsh. I really question the mental IQ of somebody who watches that show consistently. It is so bad. And it's like, I watch clips for 5 minutes and it's all over the place. None of those people, Whoopi Goldberg is just, I don't even know what she's talking about.
What
they just
is
go
she
off these
doing?
Tangents. They're not actually, they are not informed on politics at all. They talk about it, but none of them have any idea. And they're writing all false facts because they all have an agenda. And I used to like Anna Navarre. She used to be okay. She's really gone off the deep end. I just can't. I don't understand how it's a show. I feel like every time you hear about The View, seriously, over the last 3 years, every news article about The View, which seems to be like once or twice every month, is always negative. It's something they say that's offensive. It's them getting into fights personally. It's people leaving because they hate them. It's never like, oh, look at this interesting interview they did with somebody. It is just an absolute S-word show. It's awful. I don't know how. I don't know it's still on air. And every time they have negative comments, I want people to stop covering this. I don't care what they say. No one watches it. The most press they get is from the media covering ridiculous stuff they say. So let's ignore them. Let's do what we do to the school bully or whatever. Just ignore them. I'm done. I don't want to talk about them.
Market forces at work. Just start ignoring them, and then their views will go down. And then maybe they're on ABC, right? Maybe ABC will just nix the show, pull it from the air, and we don't have to deal with this anymore. I don't understand how they're still on after so many offensive things that they keep saying over and over and over. And Liam Neeson, man, he's an American treasure. He needs to put his foot down and say, get these women off the air or give them different jobs. Just don't put them together, because when they all get together, they just feed off each other, and it creates just this black hole of intellect. I don't know. It's disgusting.
And Whoopi Goldberg is a good actress. Just go back to acting. That's what you're good at.
Go back to acting.
Yeah. Joy Behar is, well, she's not really good at anything, but she is famous for being an actor. Or actress. But yeah, it's really bad. And I feel like this type of show, and one of the greatest things was Norm Macdonald going on there, the late Norm Macdonald, and just basically embarrassing them. He had a great thing where they hated him, he made things so awkward, and they insulted him. But they're they are just bad people's a strong word because I don't know them personally.
I don't know them.
Horrible to watch, and I feel like if we stop giving them attention, they'll go off the air. Also, somebody needs to come with it's people who don't work, who are retired, I guess, or stay-at-home moms who watch it. Let's find a different show, some other live show with not awful people who actually talk about things of real substance.
Or just turn on Netflix in the middle of the day, if you have to. If you got to have noise in the background, just don't watch them. They talk about someone who I watch and it makes me feel dumber. The View, for sure. It makes my blood boil when we get into that. Last thing, we've got a movie premiere this weekend that Mark and I are jazzed for. Many of you might not have heard of this. It's kind of niche, but it's called Cocaine Bear. And it's based on a true story out of Tennessee where a bear ate a crap load of cocaine and went insane. Isn't it based on a true story, Mark? I think this is a comedic version of a true story, but it comes out tonight. I will be seeing it tomorrow. Bought my tickets 2 weeks ago. It is going to be, talk about a dumpster fire. I feel like this is going to be an absolute dumpster fire of a movie, and I've never been more excited for anything in my entire life. I'm so pumped to see this just crazy, insane movie because we do retreats in Gatlinburg as a staff. And I did something really dumb last year. I left a bag of Sour Patch Kids in Stephanie's car and left the trunk open because I thought people were putting more bags in the car. We looked out and there was fully a bear in the trunk of her car eating my Sour Patch Kids. Bears will eat anything that sounds good to them. And in this situation, there was a lot of cocaine. I don't know how much. I don't even know how much a lot is, but a lot of cocaine, and a bear got into it. And if you can imagine a grizzly bear sober, imagine a grizzly bear on cocaine. This movie is going to be terribly acted, probably really bad production, but probably going to be one of my favorite movies of the year. I don't know, Mark, what's your take?
I first of all want to just note what you first said, because when the bear got in the car, you blamed me for not shutting the trunk. So Stephanie, if you would like to hear that, Taylor just took responsibility for the bear almost destroying your car.
I thought you were putting your bag in the car. You were right behind me.
No. But yeah,
I
you
thought
blame me. But
I thought you were putting your bag in the car. You were right behind me. I'm just saying.
No, I was going to the trash can. But it is a fun. It kind of reminds you of Sharknado, but if Sharknado is a true story, and it's going to be outlandish. It's probably none of the things that really happened. But basically, what happened was like somebody smuggling cocaine from Colombia. So it was a gigantic amount. That's like that I don't know how it got there. So it was not like they had again, I don't really know how cocaine's done, but I don't know
how it works.
I don't know how, it's not like a normal, I guess, snort or whatever you call it hit. But it was a ton of cocaine, and it was a whole, whatever the bags are of cocaine. So it was apparently a crazy experience, and it's a story I hadn't heard about, but it's so funny and crazy. It's a true story. And it's like, when you think about the scariest thing you could possibly see, a bear is up there. Add cocaine, and I feel like that is the absolute scariest thing that could possibly happen to you. Like, the idea of no inhibitions, all the energy, ready to just tear things up. I mean, it is, it's a scary story, and I'm sure it's going to be awful, but it's Elizabeth Banks who's directing it, so I'm sure it'll be a little funny.
I hope it's funny. I think it's going to be hilarious. After watching the trailer, it feels like a 2-hour-long parody. Is what the trailer feels like it's going to be. Like if Scary Movie was the actual version of the movie. It feels like just a 2-hour-long parody. So I think it's going to be great. It takes place in Tennessee, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So head to the theater this weekend. See Cocaine Bear. Tell us what you think. I'll give a review of it.
Why don't you head to the theater first? Because it might be the worst as well. I think you could watch it and tell us. It's a funny story, but how many times does a funny real-life story not translate? It's like, wow, what an awful. And it's already so insane to begin with. It's like, there's no real reason to make it more insane. So we'll see how it goes. True. You let us know how it goes, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. I can't wait to see it. Well, that's all we got for you this week on Decaf. Again, we're going through topics that we talked about in our blueprint for a freer Tennessee. So if you're interested in that, visit beacontn.org/blueprint. This has been Mark and Taylor on Decaf, a production of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Have a great weekend.